Dearest Ms. Lola Hampton and Mr. Frank Pinder, we write to you in ancestral reverence and bid you greetings in the spirit of Sankofa. We have come together to celebrate the first Center for Agroecology at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. In so doing, we have determined a mutual desire to name this center in honor of you both. It is our intention to honor your incredible legacy and, in gratitude, celebrate our rich cultural and agricultural legacy rooted in the richness of our African heritage.
I'm Dr. Jennifer Elaine Taylor, granddaughter of Lola May Hampton, and I am Associate Professor at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, where I also serve as co-director of the Lola Hampton-Frank Pinder Center for Agroecology. I am a producer, an organic producer, an educator, and an activist. So the center is named for my grandmother, Lola Hampton. And Lola Hampton was an important figure in my life, not only being my grandmother, but being a great food producer. She was a very productive farmer. And growing all kinds of produce. She had ducks and turkeys as well, and peach orchards and walnut orchards as well, pecan trees she had as well. But all of this brought the farm together. When people in the community would be in need of food, as our people passing by through the community, they would come by the house and she would share produce, and she would share cooked plates of food as well, and give people a place to stay on the farm. And so what I know of my grandmother is this kind of sharing heart, sharing not only with people in the community and being a great cook and providing food for her own table, but also sharing the produce with us as we lived in Tallahassee, bringing boxes of produce. And from that love that my grandmother had for her own farm and respect for her farmland, I believe that that kind of shared information and shared joy passed on to me and helped me to decide to go into agriculture myself. I'm told that that my mother was actually literally in the field picking cotton, and her teacher came and asked her if she wanted to go to FAMC, and she didn't know what FAMC was, so she said, like, go and ask her mama. That would be Lola. My grandmother gave my mother permission to go 4 hours down the road, so to speak, 4 hours and travel down the road to FAMC. Now this, to me, was a very big move, a very caring, loving move, because my mother was the only daughter, and my grandmother, Lola Hampton, had only a second grade or less education. So I feel that she saw this as a great opportunity for her daughter. I just think that that is so outstanding and so giving of my grandmother to have that kind of love. And that giving never stops. So we are continually giving at Florida A&M University. Both my parents retired from Florida A&M University, giving 70 years of service there. And we are continuing to work the farm and continuing to grow. The farm is now a certified organic farm, and we have the whole acreage certified organic, and it's a very productive space. We have workshops and learnings at the farm. And all of this ties into the work that I'm doing at Florida A&M University, where I am an advocate for organic farming systems, for agroecology, and underserved small farm populations.
Our planet is literally dying and crying out for help right now. And the soil is how we feed the billions of people that reside on this planet. I'm Sundiata, and currently we're sitting at the Dent Street Agro Farm, and we are in the glorious historical neighborhood of Frenchtown. And as a composter, I would consider myself a lover of soil, a soil scientist to a certain degree. My father, when I was just not even a year old, connected with my uncle his brother-in-law who lived down here and who was teaching at Florida A&M. And they decided to go into a worm business together. So like literally raising what we call red wiggler worms for bait. I realized that I'm in Tallahassee because of worms. And so I guess fate would just have it that I ended up becoming a cultivator of these same worms that my father ventured into as a small business, you know, in the mid-70s.
I'm Bessie Gallen, and I'm married to Washington Gallen, 54 years. And we've been living and farming here all our married life.
I'm Washington Gallen, and I was born and raised in Jefferson County, and I've been farming all my life. Daddy was a farmer, and he had 9 boys and 6 girls, and I was the only one that really farmed behind him. And he moved up here in 1920. In 1940, he bought his tractor. Was the first black farmer in Jefferson County to have a tractor.
I didn't grow up on a farm. I only grew up with an old woman that raised us by planting vegetables, corn that she would have somebody to harvest, and we would take it to a mill to have it ground. That tool she used to plant, and to see that stuff grow from that, putting a little seed in the ground, and then it grew into something that could sustain us, that could feed us. That's where I learned to love that. When I met him, they had a big farm, and they planted everything. They killed 15 hogs a year. They didn't have to go to the store for stuff to get what we needed to eat. Their mother didn't go to town for anything. They had it all.
I'm Setta Barnhart. I'm the owner and operator of Seedtime Harvest Farms, which is a community-supported agricultural program that provides fresh produce from farmers straight to family stores. I've been doing this about 10 years, and it's where I've come to by coming to FAMU. Our work in farming was pretty much stimulated from my father-in-law, who was growing food, and I saw that there was this abundance of food that he had grown at one time, these golden zucchini, and supposedly these farmers were supposed to come pick it up at one of these agencies, and they didn't because it wasn't in boxes. So this food predominantly wasted, and I saw throughout many farms that there was more food, good food, available for people, and there seemed to be this shortage of people having good access to food. So I created this opportunity of just packaging it up, sending it to the folks, and create a business out of doing that just work by itself.
Hello, I'm Shakafrika Simmons. I go by Chef Shack. I'm the owner of Soulful and Chef Shack LLC.
I am Katricia Washington, go by Chef K, and I am the co-owner of Soulful and Chef Shack LLC. We are partners in life and in love, in business.
Soulful was started just by a demand, folks wanting to eat our food, wanting to have more access to us and our food.
Other than just catering.
Yeah, because we've been catering for so many years. Yeah, so they wanted to be able to come and eat and enjoy. And so we kind of went out on a limb. 2020, we started this process. And
in the middle of COVID.
In the middle of COVID. In the middle of COVID. And yeah, 2021, we got in this building. So the significance of being in Goodwood, in the Goodwood Museum, and being in the Rough House, for us, it's like reclamation, like reclaiming something that our ancestors lost, because this land was
a cotton plantation.
It was a cotton plantation. And many, for years, they were not honest about that part of it. And so we found out now that there have been 250 slaves on this property. And I don't know, we just wanted to take some ownership of something that had been a place of oppression for us.
Well, and Tallahassee itself is an interesting place because Tallahassee was mostly made up of cotton and tobacco plantations.
Yeah.
They had like 14 to 17,000 slaves at one point, and Tallahassee was one of the cities that never fell during the Civil War as well.
Being here definitely, I don't know, take some of our power back.
My name is Rosa Lovett, and I am owner of Ruby's Produce. This business has been in existence for a little over 50 years. Walter and Ruby Freeman were my parents, and they started this business out under that large oak tree that's right out front of Ruby's Produce. And he started with just a stand, like a regular roadside stand, with tables and baskets with tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever farming produce he did, and whatever fruit that my mom did up on the trees at the house, which was like figs and pears. If I had to think about just a tree and not this building, I would have to say about 12 years under that tree before they shifted to the building. They were really trying to, I guess, make a decision with 12 head of kids if this is something we are ready to do and should we just continue to do it, because they were running produce back and forth South Florida, and they were trying to stabilize themselves and come up with something that would work for a good school district for kids, and a place that would be workable. And since our family originated from this area, which is a little bit further down Meridian onto Gardner Road. And so we originated around there with 100 acres of property, and eventually moved out this way.
My name is Kwesi Densu. I'm co-director of the Lola Hampton-Frank Pinder Center of Agroecology. I'm also a farmer, which is as important as being the co-director of the center. And how I see myself, my identity, and my life's work is in relationship to the land. And that's how I actually got into farming. I ended up being trained in the social sciences, a professor of African American studies at FAMU. But I never lost my want to or connection to nature. And I found my way back to that, through farming. So as a person of African descent, we always had a very intimate and connected relationship to the land base. This is the Henry family farm. It's been Black-owned land since the post-Reconstruction era. And I've been fortunate enough to develop relationships with the family to develop Food to Organics, which is a local farm for self-provisioning, as well as a CSA, community-supported agriculture. And we endeavor to bring healthy food to the Tallahassee community for our families and ourselves.
I was raised in a community with my great-grandparents and my grandparents, and then my mother's generation, all of us, very close, very interactive. And my grandparents always grew food in the backyard. My whole life, they always did. So my work with food now is really just an extension from my years of growing up. I've been here on this campus since the 80s and taking care of young adults coming on here. And all throughout my community, my wife and I, we established an independent school. We ran for 17 years.
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and a person that wants to heal the mind and heal us from within so that our outward expression looks a lot differently than it currently looks for my people. My life's mission has always been about trying to figure out why I'm here, what am I supposed to be doing, and how can I leave this place in a better space than I inherited it. So that's been the lifelong agenda for me. I don't think people understand the connection between our mental functioning as well as our physical functioning and food.
This intimate relationship between the land and growing food and the evolution of culture?
Absolutely. The food definitely leads the way. The food kind of inspires us. The season inspires us.
Like Chef said, we get inspired from what nature has to offer during the seasons. And we call our style of cooking Southern fusion because we take what's indigenously grown in the South and fuse it with other cultures and cuisines.
Like right now, you know, all this beautiful produce on this table, I'm already thinking like I'm gonna have a mushroom saute. I'm gonna do some kind of puree with my carrots. Like it's just, all these things that are kind of going through my head as I'm looking at this little bountiful basket right here. So it definitely drives our menu.
Yes. Like we take different cultures and cuisines and infuse them with what's growing in the South.
Right.
And so we take pesto and make mix collard greens in with the basil instead of the pine nuts. We use pecans that are found in Thomasville, Georgia with the pecan oil. We have local cheeses that we use, and from there we make a vinaigrette out of it. We source most of our produce and products is through Seta Barnhart and CSA's Sundiata Mill.
And compost communities.
Compost communities.
Yes.
And
we just work with a lot of local farmers and growers. We're connected to Frenchtown, Southside. It's so many.
TFN.
Yeah, Tallahassee Food Network. So it's just this ecosystem of growers and folks that are working in the community, food activists like myself, who are out here just wanting folks to get the best food that they can have, and that's the food that's in season and in their community.
If you ever want to see a full show of what Ruby's about, Market Days is the event, because the cookers, the gourmet greens, the cornbread, the mustard green soup, the squash soup, all of that is available. And the cakes, the homemade cakes, the bakery, all of that is available. I cater mostly to vegetarians and those that want to eat mostly on the health side. The vegetables that I serve are the vegetables that I sell. So I bring to the community produce that is shelled, ready for the freezer, cooked peas, I bring that. Okra and tomato, I bring that. Gourmet greens that are cooked already if you want to cook them. Other than that, I do a wash and chop green that is already prepared, and all you have to do is prepare your seasoned pot and drop them in.
Growing food and watching that process of food growing, and you see all the cycles of life and the principles of cultivation. So when you're watching these plants grow, you're seeing a principle in work. Just like you have to cultivate these plants, you got to cultivate your life too. You got to cultivate your community. You got to cultivate anything that you're trying to develop. What I hope to see is Wakanda. Now, why do I say that? The old reality that's necessary for survival along with technology. A lot of people don't realize that the scientific community emerged out of the farmers, not out of some scientists who sit in the lab somewhere. The lab was actually in the earth. The lab was outdoors.
It all starts with the soil. And so being able to take natural ingredients, just what we call organic matter, right? We take organic matter and we combine those items. Like I mentioned earlier, you need a carbon source and a nitrogen source. And so that carbon is your wood chips, and so you'll see this compost is very wood chip heavy, right? Little sticks and twigs, okay? And then all of the dark matter that you see in here, the very fine and crumbly stuff, at one point that was food. That was coffee grounds or fruit and veggie waste. And over time, over the course of about a month, the bacteria and the fungi break all that matter down, and it converts it into a substrate that's ready and available. It makes nutrients available for plants and flowers to utilize to grow and thrive in the environments that they're in. And so here we can come in and we can see the difference. That's a finished substrate right there. That is what you're looking for. And it's holding moisture. You can't see it, but it's full of microbiology. And so we take that material, if we squeeze it, it holds. That lets you know that it has roughly a 50% moisture, 50% moisture within it, and it just crumbles apart. That lets you know that you have a good soil or a good compost that's ready to go back into the earth. Compost is a living organism. It is a combination of various inputs from carbon material and nitrogen material. And when you bring those items together, it creates a spark. It's a spark of life that actually happens. And so we want to get back to indigenous ways of growing, indigenous ways of propagation, indigenous ways of cultivation, and move away from the synthetic so that we can heal people through the food. So you know, let that food be your medicine and let that medicine be your food.
How do we get to instill that into them, in the younger generation? We can't name 10 minority farmers in Jefferson County. All the property was owned by minorities. It was owned by black people. It's all gone.
We need to get back to the land. We need to take ownership of our land and how we're moving through the world. And we can't depend on Publix and Winn-Dixie and all these stores. We have to have access to this. If you don't grow it, you better know somebody who does.
Most of the spaces that have to do with agroecology and organic farming systems are white-led spaces and are white-dominated spaces. And the organic agriculture movement is a white-led movement, so to speak. Even though those practices started with our people, those practices resulted from indigenous knowledge and training and education among our communities. That knowledge was taken and repurposed as organic agriculture and organic farming systems. I serve on the board of the Rodale Institute, on the board of Cornucopia Institute, on the world board of IFOAM Organics International, headquartered in Germany. I serve as the president of IFOAM North America, as vice president of Organic Farmers Association, as North America convener of continents for ANOFO, which is the intercontinental network of organic farmers organization, as advisor to the National Organic Coalition. Our voices should be heard in these spaces is where I present my voice. I am the only Black American on these boards. If you say you're a token in a situation, it's that you're there, but you're not really serving a purpose. You're not really contributing to the conversation or the dialogue or the work that's being done. Our impact is in raising up tokens of goodness and raising up tokens of well-being and raising up tokens of success and innovation, stemming from the work, the programs and the trainings and the voices of the Center for Agroecology at Florida A&M University.
Success for the Agroecology Center is more Black farmers, more Black landowners, more healthy food in our community, more young people having their hands in the soil, away from the TV screens, this from me, away from the cell phones, a healthier ecosystem. You know, for me, that's what success looks like. And the Agroecology Center is just a conduit for that. At the end of the day, we're trying to help our folk gain access to cleaner, to healthier, more culturally appropriate food. And in doing that, remediate or repair the negative impacts that industrial civilization has had on the environment, and in turn address the issues of inequality and self-development within our communities.